Perfect. Well, hopefully perfect. You're right.
Yeah. Right, after a slightly delayed start, we can get the meeting going. So thank you, councillors, for attending. Otherwise, I would have been here all on my own. We do have a couple of apologies for absence from councillors Clark and Watermain. And I think you said that you understood, councillor, that wasn't.
I asked him whether he'd been here yesterday, and he said he wasn't intending to come.
Right.
That being, which one?
Councillor Wade was not intending to come. I'm not quite sure whether you record that as an apology or what, really. And Councillor Fuller simply isn't here. Right. Well, do we accept the apologies of Councillors Clark and Quartermain? Presumably, yes.
Yeah.
Good. Representations from interested parties, there are none. Any declarations of interest? Firstly, any disclosure of pecuniary interests? And secondly, any other interests?
None that I'm aware of.
Anything becomes apparent, we'll deal with it then. Right, minutes of the last planning meeting, which was the 23rd of September, have been circulated. Present with the three of us, Councillors Clark and Quartermain. Can I ask one other of you, hopefully, to propose these minutes as a correct record? Councillor Shura, thank you. All those in favour? Shouldn't be too difficult. Right, on to the planning applications themselves. We kick off with 7 Marketplace, which is an application of a listed building consent. 7 Marketplace was North's shoe shop. Prior to that, it was Cotton's. It has been acquired by Age UK. And it is them who are seeking permission, essentially, to put up the Age UK name above the door, and to put a white vinyl lettering in the top window above the entrance door. I think is not that premises, that's somewhere else, where they're showing how it looks. I think later on, somewhere there is that's the actual premises, and that, if you go back up again, so look down, that's it. There's the drawing, so you can see above the double door the logo on the window. And then on the fascia board above that, the wording Age UK, all of which seems relatively discreet.
That is it, that one there. Is it the same?
That's what it looks
That's
like.
what it looks like.
Yeah, they kind of put it on that photo.
So these are premises elsewhere, but you can see the Age UK logo, which is very small over the doorway.
So why do they need it twice?
They've not, they've just got the one Age UK and then one that says shop local, help local.
Ah, okay, I can't read it.
Yeah, that's what that one says. And I think if you go back to the drawing, which is underneath there, if you, I don't know whether, can you make that larger?
That's it.
That's about
They're 2 bits that it's showing you.
Yeah. So that's as good as it's going to get, and then there's the mock-up photograph below, which perhaps if we can get to that.
It's not going to look like that.
It's not even as big as that.
It's just
that
that bit in the middle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What they say is the new signage will be the same size as the signage for the previous business, although the lettering is of a different size but doesn't exceed the permitted total height. The sign's going to be made of timber, affixed with secret screws into the existing fascia board, non-illuminated. Lettering will be over the double door entrance to the shop, and white vinyl lettering applied to the inside of the window immediately above the entrance door. When I looked on Sunday, there were no public comments on the portal. Historic England said it wasn't an application of the type that they felt it necessary to make any response to. Perhaps unsurprisingly, NC Archaeology had no comments to make because it doesn't alter anything which isn't in effect already there.
I don't have a problem with it, could be far worse.
I just think they should get on with it.
Yeah, I do.
No objection. The next one.
It's nice that they asked. We don't always get asked.
No, well, they did indicate in their design and access statement that they weren't entirely sure whether they needed to apply for this at all, but they did, which at least gave us the opportunity to see it in advance and make comment. So the next application is the rifle range. Councillor Chessel will certainly recall a time when the rifle range was actually owned by the town council,
It was,
leased to the rifle club.
yeah.
After
Really?
a lot of trying, they eventually persuaded us to sell. So we sold them the rifle range.
Incredibly strange place, wasn't it?
It is. It's very accurately described again in the sort of paperwork that's there. There are two ranges. One, as it were, pointing towards one outside wall and the other pointing towards the other outside wall with a club room in between the two. There is an existing ventilation system, but the rationale behind the application is new health and safety rules, which means they're going to have to put in a souped-up system. So this is a new system to replace the old. The building itself is startlingly unprepossessing. It's mid-20th century, single-story, flat-roofed. And there it is, viewed from the cricket ground.
I can say we don't always see that.
It would
Where
be lovely in a movie, wouldn't it? I mean, it's really...
Yeah, you can barely see it there, which is the point. There will be two ducts, one at either end of the building. And they're going to be in green so as to merge into the undergrowth, so to speak. Green powder-coated steel. They indicate in their application that it will be a high-volume, low-velocity system designed to operate under 75 decibels. There's really not a lot more to say about it. No public comments were on the portal. There was one from NNC Highways, and not surprisingly, had nothing to say about it. It's difficult to see how it could conceivably affect the highway. And there it is, effectively located at the rear of our car park. But I think it's sufficiently tenuous that I don't even see the need for us to declare another interest just because we happen to own the car park that sits in front of it.
I just thought we could persuade them to move and then we could solve our car parking problem.
Well, of course, if they did relocate, I suppose we might want to acquire the land back again.
Very occasionally it does come up. They do sort of decide, don't they?
Well, they do have another, or at least they used to have another location as well.
Yeah, I think they've kept stopped.
I'm not sure whether that still exists or
One at the
not.
school.
Anyway, as far as this application is concerned, again, I think there's very little to say about it.
My view is, I doubt if anybody will notice the work having been carried out.
It would be very difficult to notice it. You wouldn't see it from the car park.
Most people
You
don't
wouldn't
know
see it
it's
from the
there.
Benefield Road. You can't see it from the cricket ground, as you can see.
And from what I understand from a club member, not that this should influence our decision, is that if they can't undertake this work, it will have to cease to be a firing range.
Yeah,
Well, they do say it's required to meet health and safety legislation, but I can't see any reason for us to.
no, I think it's
Worry about
okay. Yeah.
No objection again. Which brings us on to trees, 3 of them. Well, actually more than 3 trees, but 3 tree applications, let's say. The first of which is at 15 Mill Road. That was the area that was developed by the late Mr. Pollock. And the application of that comes in from, I think it was probably his widow. And there are 2 cherry trees which they want to remove and replace. As with all of these things, what you see is the application itself, and then there is a location plan, and you can see, if you follow the 2 arrows, the location of the 2 trees to be removed, which are cherry trees, and replaced. The trees are described in the application as in decline, but we don't get any photographs of them. They are, I suppose, in a relatively prominent position, but bearing in mind that it is not an application in connection with a tree with a TPO, it's an application in connection with trees located within the conservation area. Our only options are, in effect, to say nothing or to advance a case as to why these trees should become subject to TPOs. That, I think, we would struggle with. So I'm inclined to say it's probably a no comment.
It's a general comment, and I'm sure we've made this before, David, but is there nothing that we can do that gets the message across that these kind of applications must realistically have a photo of the tree in situ?
When I had the meeting now some 6 months ago with Lee Barron, that was one of the points that I made to him, that I thought there should actually be legislation on the subject, because it is stunningly difficult to make sense sometimes of tree applications without sight of the actual tree. And these days, to take a photograph and submit it with your application is not exactly problematic. I am more than happy for us to raise it direct with NNC planning, not that I expect that they will do anything about it or even respond to us. But I entirely agree with you. I think that these applications would be much better, which is why I've made the point on my notes in connection with all 3 of the applications we'll consider tonight that none of them have any photographs. In each of them, you simply get the application document and you get a diagram that shows you the location of the trees on that sort of site plan.
Yeah, sorry to mention it. I mean, I know that it's, the wider point is that, if I'm perfectly honest, I don't know, because I mean, yes, you have a verbal description, not verbal, sorry, written description of the tree and why it needs to be happen, but I have no idea. We've seen this before, where sometimes the written description of the tree and its ailments doesn't fit what you can actually see on the ground.
Again, I entirely agree with you. And of course, I think it would be even more significant if this was a tree that was subject to a TPO, because without a photograph to illustrate the point, I'd be almost tempted to say that the application can't be properly determined.
Well, I think that's
should be objected to on that basis.
That's the direction that I'm heading into.
Yeah. However, as this is a tree in a conservation area application, I simply suggest that unless anybody feels very strongly about the specific trees that it's probably a no comment.
Well, it's a sort of poshly done up corner that. It is, I mean, there's been no expense spared.
Oh no,
The whole
I mean they've made a good job of it.
So these are sort of much posher trees, well, you know,
Yeah.
Indian bean tree.
So no
No,
comment
no,
or no
no
objection? Probably no comment.
I just like the description that the trees are in decline.
Yes. The mind, you know, sort of boggles so slightly. Speak for yourself, councillor. Before we get any sillier. Another tree in the conservation area, this time at 12 North Street, where the application is to remove an apple tree and a quince tree. The application, again, containing the only information that you get apart from the site plan, this says that they're both to be removed due to their proximity to a wall. You can see.
One of them clearly is, the other one doesn't look right anywhere near it.
Yes, I agree with you. The diagram doesn't seem to entirely support that. But again, it's a tree in a conservation area job, not a TPO job. They're not trees that could be seen easily by members of the public. You can't see them from North Street.
This must be one of the old paths, isn't it? Is it the old White Line or whatever?
12 North Street, I didn't bother to check it out, but the one next to it definitely was. I'm not sure whether that one ever was. Of course, it's in proximity to a number of listed buildings, including St. Peter's Church, which is Grade 1. But that's it. There's nothing else we can work from. And I'd be inclined again to say
I think
that.
I will point out that the map does not tally with the description, and we don't understand why the one that's clearly in the middle of the garden should be removed, as there's no supporting evidence. Their argument is that they want to remove its next door wall. Well, one of them clearly is not next door wall, so the argument fails.
Well, unless there's a wall, if you like, you can't see on that. But that would have been so much better if there'd been a photograph that demonstrated what the issue was. As I say, the difficulty is it's simply a tree in a conservation area job, but I think there is a case for saying that the grounds for the application, or at least the basis of the application, is set out in the application document, which says it's proximity to a wall. The diagram seems to indicate that one of the two trees is, but the other one isn't. And simply leave it at that.
Yeah, that's what I would recommend.
Yeah. So we're just flagging it.
Yeah.
Can I just say a little comment? We seem to be somehow or other got into, somehow in the town, into some of these lovely old trees suddenly being removed. And that seems to be counter to what having things called TPOs are.
That we should not consider them, without full information, by which I mean, a photograph. Just saying, we want to take this away because it's next door wall. Well.
So what?
Yeah, so what?
I mean, again, I'll stress the point that it's a conservation area job rather than a TPO job. Having said that, if one could see the tree and see it in context by way of photographs, might make it easier to see whether in fact the tree has merit such that it perhaps should be the subject of an application. I'm conscious of the fact, having said that, we're talking about an apple tree and a quince tree rather than anything more.
Well, quinces aren't all that usual, are they? I bet there's not many quince trees in Arundel.
Possibly not, I don't know. I was just thinking our last dinner guest came and presented us, rather than a bottle of wine, with a bottle of homemade jam and a bottle of homemade quince jelly.
Well, that's because it's unusual to get hold of quinces.
Yeah. Perhaps when we submit this, we could put in a sort of a blanket reference to the lack of photographs and the fact that it makes it more difficult to gauge this issue. The next one is 3 Milton Road. Again, an application purely because it's within the conservation area. This is to remove another cherry tree and to reduce a second cherry tree back to previous points. So one of them is, if you like, purely tree husbandry. The other is a removal. This time the applicant, which isn't James Rowlett as it was on the other two, but Luke Newman Tree Care, describes the cherry tree as in major decline. So as opposed to just being in decline, which we had with the first of our tree applications, this one is in quote unquote major decline with something called bracket fungus around its base. And you've got the 2 trees, T1, T2. T1 is the one with the problem, T2 is the one they just want to cut back. The reason they say they want it cut back is to allow more light into the garden. Again, there are no supporting photographs. So we're left in a pretty similar position as we are to the other 2 matters, frankly. The difference, I suppose, being that whilst it's in the conservation area, it's not in quite such a sensitive spot as arguably 12 North Street is. Any views on whether we should say anything?
I'm just trying to find it on the Google Maps, where at least an aerial view of trying to work out, that's that building there. From what I can tell, there are actually several trees in that location. And in terms of arboreal culture, it might make sense to actually take them back in order to give the others a chance, if you see what I mean.
Yeah.
I